I remember how it all began when I was 24, living in a small flat on the outskirts of Manchester. Nothing grand, just a one-bedroom place with thin walls and a view of the car park, but it suited me well enough. I worked in a phone repair shop in the city centre, mending cracked screens, flat batteries, and whatever else people dropped off. The wages covered the rent and bills, and I never had to think too deeply about it. Most days simply blurred together. I'd head in, sort out customers swearing their phones had died for no reason, then grab a takeaway on the way home. No grand dreams or 5-year plans. I'd dated a few girls over the years, but nothing ever lasted. They always wanted more ambition, more excitement, and I suppose I simply didn't have it to give. That was my life until I met Liam at the shop. He'd started not long before, fresh out of college, and we clicked straight away. A bit younger than me, he shared the same dry humor and love for classic rock bands like Guns N' Roses. We'd chat through the slow spells, moaning about fussy customers, or sharing memes on our breaks. One afternoon, after a particularly long shift, he slapped me on the back and said, "Mate, you should come round for dinner sometime. My mum's doing tacos. We can play a few games afterwards." I hesitated at first. I'm not one for much socializing. But Liam was sound, and I thought, why not? It beat another night alone with the telly. Before long, I drove over after work. The Manchester suburbs all look alike. Wide streets lined with identical semi-detached houses, neat gardens, and the odd flag fluttering gently. His place was a modest 2-story with a blue door and a basketball hoop in the drive. I parked my battered old Ford and knocked, feeling a touch out of place in my faded jeans and work shirt. Liam opened the door with a grin, wearing tracksuit bottoms and holding a controller. "Ryan, come on in. Food's nearly ready." The house felt warm and lived in. Wooden floors, family photos on the walls, and the rich smell of sizzling beef and spices drifting from the kitchen. He led me to the living room, where an old leather sofa faced the big screen telly. "Make yourself at home. Mum's just finishing up." That was when she walked in. Rachel Hayes, Liam's mum. She carried a tray of crisps and salsa, and for a second, I simply froze. She must have been in her late 30s, yet she wore it effortlessly. Dark hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, simple jeans and a fitted black top that showed her figure without trying. Her hazel eyes were warm, and she moved with a quiet confidence that needed no proof. "You must be Ryan," she said, setting the tray down and offering her hand. Her voice was smooth, with a hint of laughter in it. "Liam's told me about you. Lovely you could come." I shook it and felt a spark I couldn't explain. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Hayes." She smiled gently. "Just Rachel, please. No need for formalities." Up close, there was something about her. The way her eyes crinkled, the way she held herself. It hit me differently. She wasn't like the girls my age, all selfies and drama. She seemed real, grounded, with a depth that made me curious. We sat down to the tacos with all the trimmings, fresh guacamole, and cold beers from the fridge. Conversation flowed easily. Liam talked about a tricky customer, I shared the story of the phone dropped in the loo, and Rachel asked thoughtful questions about our work. She laughed at our jokes, yet there was a maturity to her, as if she had seen more of life than we had. At one point, she mentioned being a single mum since Liam was small, his dad had left years earlier, and how she balanced her nursing job with raising him. No sob story, just a shrug and a sip of her beer. After dinner, Liam and I moved to the living room for the games. More beers, FIFA on the console, plenty of banter and laughter whenever one of us scored. Rachel popped her head in once or twice, offering more snacks or asking if we needed anything. Each time I caught myself glancing at her a little too long. Midway through a match, Liam paused to fetch another drink, and I leaned back, feeling the beer. Without thinking, I muttered, "Your mum's hotter than most girls I've dated." Liam burst out laughing and punched my arm. "Mate, that's grim. She's my mum." I chuckled too, trying to play it off, my face heating up. I hadn't meant to say it aloud, it simply slipped. As he restarted the game, I glanced toward the kitchen and saw Rachel standing there, drying a plate. She must have heard, because she looked straight at me, not angry, not shocked, just curious. Her eyes lingered a second longer than normal, and the corner of her mouth twitched in a subtle smile. Then she turned away as if nothing had happened. The rest of the evening passed pleasantly enough. We played more rounds and chatted about weekend plans, but that moment stayed with me. Driving home later, the cool Manchester night air rushing through the open window, I replayed it in my head. Why had I said that? And why did her look twist my stomach? It wasn't just attraction. It felt deeper, as if she had seen straight through me. I told myself it was the beer talking, yet as I pulled into my parking spot and killed the engine, I couldn't stop thinking about her. That single glance had planted a seed, and I had no idea what it would grow into. As time passed, the evening lingered in my mind. Work carried on as usual, a stream of shattered phones and frustrated customers, yet my thoughts kept drifting back to her hazel eyes and that faint smile. Then one day, a notification popped up. Rachel Hayes had started following me on Instagram. I froze. How had she even found me? Liam must have mentioned my handle at some point. Her profile was nothing flashy, just photos of Manchester sunsets, a few with Liam at a match, and some quiet shots of coffee mugs and books. No selfies, no showy poses. It suited her perfectly. I followed back, and almost at once, she liked an old picture of me hiking in the Peak District foothills, then another of my workbench at the shop, tools scattered everywhere. My heart picked up pace. Was this a coincidence, or was she checking me out? I didn't message her. What on earth would I say? But it stayed with me through the rest of the shift. Before long, Liam texted to say his mum was making pasta if I fancied coming round again for games afterwards. I stared at the screen, part of me wanting to avoid the awkwardness, yet another part, the one that kept picturing Rachel's smile, typed back that I was in. When I arrived, I had made a little extra effort. A clean button-up shirt, combed hair, even a splash of the cologne I hadn't touched in months. It felt daft, like I was preparing for a date, but I couldn't help it. Liam greeted me with a fist bump. Back for round 2, eh? Mum's pasta is proper, secret family recipe or something. The kitchen smelled wonderful. Garlic, tomatoes, fresh basil. Rachel was at the stove stirring a pot. She turned when Liam called out, and our eyes met. That same subtle smile appeared, but warmer this time, more intentional. Ryan, good to see you again, she said, wiping her hands. She wore a simple sundress that hugged her figure just enough to make my throat dry. Hope you're hungry. Dinner was easy, like before. We talked about work, laughed at the usual stories, yet I noticed the differences. She held my gaze a beat longer, her questions aimed more at me. So, Ryan, what do you do for fun outside the shop? When I mentioned hiking, she nodded. I used to love that, getting away from the city noise. It's been years, though. There was a hint of something extra in her words, like a double meaning I couldn't quite catch. Then, midway through the meal, she brought it up lightly, almost playfully. Liam mentioned I had said something interesting last time. He snorted and shoved pasta into his mouth. Yeah, mate called you hot, or something. Classic Ryan. I nearly choked, face burning. Rachel just smiled, eyes on me. It's been a while since I've heard anything like that. Flattering, I suppose. The way she said it wasn't accusing. It felt light, almost inviting. I mumbled that it had been a joke, but she waved it off. No need to apologize. Honesty is rare these days. After we cleared the plates, Liam headed upstairs for a new controller. Be right back. Don't start without me. That left me alone with Rachel in the kitchen. I offered to help with the dishes, grabbing a sponge. The sink was small, forcing us close. The air felt thicker, charged. She handed me a wet bowl, and our fingers brushed for a split second. About what you said last time, she began, voice lower now. Were you serious or just messing about? I paused, water running over my hands. My heart pounded. I could have laughed it off, but something in her eyes, curious, vulnerable, made me honest. I meant it, I admitted, keeping my voice steady. You're different, in a good way, more real than the girls I've dated. She didn't pull away or scold me. Instead, she leaned against the counter, arms crossed. It's been a long time since anyone looked at me like that. After my marriage ended, I just faded into the background, became Liam's mum. Invisible, you know? Her words hung there, raw and unguarded. I nodded, understanding more than I let on. You're not invisible to me. Liam's footsteps echoed from upstairs, breaking the moment. Rachel straightened, flashing a quick smile. Thanks for helping with the dishes. We rejoined him in the living room and played games as if nothing had happened, yet everything had shifted. Driving home that night, the city lights blurring past, I checked my phone at a red light, another like from her on Instagram, an old photo of me at a concert. It wasn't polite anymore. Something was building, quiet and undeniable. I didn't know where it would lead, but for the first time in ages, my ordinary life felt like it had a spark. The days that followed kept my mind stuck on Rachel. Her likes on my Instagram continued. Another hiking shot, then one from a concert I had forgotten. Each notification sent a jolt through me, making work feel even more mundane. Liam noticed I was quieter during shifts, but I brushed it off as tiredness. Deep down, I knew something was brewing, and it scared me a little. Then one evening, my phone buzzed with a direct message from her. Liam was out with friends. If I wasn't busy, I should swing by for some tea. She had baked cookies earlier. My stomach flipped. This wasn't through Liam. No group invite, no pretense. It was just us. I reread it several times, weighing the risks. Liam was my mate, the bloke I joked with every day at work. What if he found out? What if it all blew up? But the pull was stronger. I typed back that I'd be there soon. I drove over as the sun set, the Manchester sky turning shades of orange and purple. The neighborhood was quiet, kids' bikes scattered on lawns, the hum of distant traffic. Pulling up felt different this time. No Liam's car in the drive, just hers. I knocked and Rachel opened the door almost at once, wearing a soft jumper and jeans, hair down for once. "Ryan," she said, her smile genuine but a touch nervous. "Come in." Tea's brewing. The house felt warmer without Liam around. Dim lights in the living room, a gentle jazz playlist playing from the speaker on the mantelpiece. No telly blaring, no console humming. She led me to the kitchen, where 2 mugs steamed on the counter beside a plate of chocolate chip cookies, still warm from the oven. "Earl Grey okay?" she asked, handing me one. I nodded and sat at the table. The air smelled of vanilla and bergamot, comforting yet charged. We began with small talk, how my week had been, a funny story from her shift at the hospital, but it didn't stay surface level long. She leaned against the counter, stirring her tea slowly. "You know, after you left last time, I couldn't stop thinking about what you said, about me not being invisible." Her voice was quieter, more vulnerable. I set my mug down and met her eyes. "I meant it. You've got this presence. It's hard to explain, but it's there." She nodded, looking away for a moment, as if gathering her thoughts. "My marriage ended years ago. He left for someone younger, someone without baggage like a child. I threw myself into being Liam's mum and into work. Somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like a woman, like anyone would see me that way again." Her words hung heavy and raw in the quiet kitchen. I listened, feeling a pang in my chest. "That sounds lonely," I said softly, "but you're not baggage, you're incredible. Raising Liam alone, keeping it all together, that's strength." She smiled faintly and stepped closer to the table. "It has been lonely, but talking to you reminds me I'm still here." We sat in silence for a bit, the music filling the gaps, a slow saxophone riff that matched the mood. I shared a little about myself too, how my life felt stuck in neutral, just going through the motions. "You make me feel seen as well," I admitted, "like I'm not just some bloke fixing phones." The conversation deepened as the evening went on. She spoke about the early days after the divorce, the nights she would cry once Liam was asleep, wondering if she would ever feel desired again. I opened up about my failed dates, how they always ended because I couldn't pretend to be more ambitious than I was. We laughed at the shared awkwardness, the tension easing. At one point, she refilled our mugs, her hand brushing mine deliberately this time. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. Then she asked the question that changed everything. "Ryan, you know this could mess things up, right? Liam is your friend, my son." Her eyes searched mine, serious yet not pulling away. I swallowed, pulse racing. "I know, I've thought about it non-stop, but I don't want to stop, not if you feel it too." She set her mug down and stepped around the table until she stood right in front of me. "I do," she whispered. We were inches apart. I could smell her light floral perfume. Her hand found mine and I stood, pulling her gently into an embrace. It started slow and tentative, but the barrier crumbled. We crossed that line, the one we had been skirting in the quiet of her home. No rush, no words needed, just the acknowledgement that this was real. Hours later, as the clock ticked past midnight, I lay there with her, the house silent except for our breathing. We didn't talk about tomorrow or labels. It was just us in that moment, raw and unguarded. When dawn began creeping through the curtains, I knew I had to leave before Liam returned. She walked me to the door, fingers lingering on my arm. "Be careful," she said softly. I nodded, stealing one last look before stepping out into the cool morning air. Driving away, the streets empty and Manchester stirring awake, I felt a mix of exhilaration and fear. Everything had changed. We hadn't promised anything, but that night had sealed something between us. The days that followed blurred into stolen moments and constant caution. I would wake replaying it all, the jazz, her confessions, the way her touch felt like something I had been missing without knowing it. Work became a distraction, yet even there, Liam was a constant reminder of the line we had crossed. We would joke about customers or plan game nights, and I would force a laugh while my stomach twisted with guilt. He was my mate, the one who had brought me into his world without hesitation, and here I was sneaking around with his mum. We kept it quiet at first, careful not to raise any flags. Rachel and I messaged through Instagram DMs, deleting them straight after. Simple things. "Liam has a late shift tonight, doors unlocked." I would show up after dark, parking a block away so his car wouldn't spot mine. Those evenings became our escape, sitting on her sofa with wine, talking for hours. She opened up more about her ex, how he had drained her emotionally before leaving and made her doubt her worth. I shared my own insecurities, how my life had felt like a holding pattern with no real connections until now. It wasn't just physical anymore. I cared about her laughter, her stories, the way she lit up when I complimented her. "You make me feel young again," she would say, head on my shoulder. But we always cut it short before Liam got home, me slipping out the back door like a thief. As time went on, the secrecy began to weigh on me. I found myself making excuses to see her more, dropping by with tools Liam supposedly needed, or offering to fix something around the house. One afternoon, I was there pretending to check a leaky tap in the kitchen. Liam was at work, yet Rachel and I ended up tangled on the sofa, whispers turning into something deeper. That was when we heard the front door click. Liam home early from a cancelled shift. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Go," she hissed, pushing me toward the back. I bolted out the sliding door and crouched behind the fence until I heard him inside. Peeking through a gap, I saw him hug her hello, asking why her face was flushed. "Just the heat," she said smoothly, though her voice cracked a little. I waited in the shadows for what felt like ages before sneaking to my car, adrenaline pumping. Too close. That night I couldn't sleep. Liam texted about grabbing beers the next day, and I felt like scum agreeing. At work, he started noticing things. "Mum's been in a good mood lately," he would say casually during lunch. "She's even humming while cooking. Weird, right?" I would nod and force a grin. "Yeah, maybe she's got a new hobby." But inside, panic brewed. He mentioned me coming over more often, joking, "You're basically family now, mate." It stung. Family didn't do what I was doing. The guilt gnawed at me during shifts, making my hands shake while I soldered circuits. Liam had my back at work, covering for me when I was late. Betraying that felt wrong, yet stopping with Rachel felt impossible. She was the first person who made me feel truly wanted, not just tolerated. One evening, after another secret meetup, I brought it up. We were in her bedroom, the house quiet with Liam out at the cinema. I pulled away mid-kiss and sat up. "What if Liam finds out?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. She sighed, propping herself on an elbow, hair tousled. "I've thought about that every day. He's my son, my everything. If he knew," she trailed off, eyes distant. "It would hurt him. He'd see it as betrayal." I nodded, rubbing my temples. "He's my mate. We game together, talk about everything. This could ruin that." She reached for my hand, touch steady. "I know, but Ryan, you've woken something in me. I don't want to go back to feeling like a shadow in my own life. Invisible, forgotten." Her words hit hard. I felt the same pull. We talked it through, weighing the risks, yet neither of us suggested ending it. "We'll be careful," she said finally, pulling me close again. "For now." The tension built like a gathering storm. Liam's comments grew sharper. Once he asked why I was texting so much during breaks, eyeing my phone. "Got a girl or something?" I laughed it off, but my pulse raced. Another time I nearly got caught leaving her place late. His car turned the corner just as I ducked into mine. Hiding became exhausting, a constant game of shadows and alibis. Yet every stolen hour with Rachel made it worth it. She wasn't just a fling, she was becoming my anchor, someone who saw past my aimless life. But the fear lingered. What if one slip shattered everything? I was torn between the warmth she gave me and the loyalty I owed Liam. Standing at that crossroads, I wondered how long we could keep the balance before it all came crashing down. As the weeks turned into months, the crossroads felt less like a choice and more like an inevitable pull. The secrecy had woven itself into our lives, a fragile web of deleted messages and hurried goodbyes. I would catch myself staring at my phone during slow shifts at the shop, waiting for her next "Liam's out" text. When it came, I felt that rush, equal parts excitement and dread. But the guilt never fully faded. Liam was still my mate, the one I high-fived after a tough repair or vented to about annoying customers. We would grab lunches together, talk about girls he was seeing or games we wanted to play. Each time I smiled and nodded, yet inside it felt like I was living a double life. How long before a crack showed? One wet evening, after a long day wrestling with water-damaged phones, I headed straight to her place. Liam was at a friend's for a study group, or so he said. The Manchester streets were slick, headlights reflecting off puddles, and I parked 2 blocks away as usual. Rachel opened the door in a cozy robe, hair damp from a shower, and pulled me inside with a kiss that tasted like relief. We ended up on the sofa, the storm pattering against the windows, a forgotten film playing in the background. But instead of losing ourselves like before, I pulled back, hand on her cheek. "This isn't just fun for me anymore," I said, voice low. "I don't want to keep sneaking around like this, like I'm only here when he's not." She sat up, expression shifting from contentment to something more serious. The room felt heavier, the jazz we had put on earlier now simply white noise. "Ryan," she started, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I've been thinking the same. You're not just a distraction. You've made me feel alive again, like I matter beyond being a mum or a nurse." She paused, hazel eyes searching mine. "But Liam, he's everything to me. If we push this further, it could break him. Us." I nodded, feeling the weight of it all. We had danced around this conversation before, yet tonight it hit differently. I thought about the close calls, the backdoor escapes, the flushed excuses. He's my mate too. I hate lying to him, but stopping now feels worse. You're the first person who's made me want more than just getting by. We talked it out. No raised voices, no ultimatums. She shared how her ex had left her feeling discarded, how raising Liam alone had been her anchor, yet also her cage. "I don't want to go back to that emptiness," she admitted, voice cracking slightly. I held her hand, tracing circles on her palm. "You won't. We can figure this out together. Not hiding forever, but not rushing either." The rain eased outside, leaving a quiet drip from the gutters. We didn't solve everything that night. There were no grand plans or promises etched in stone, but we acknowledged it. This was real, worth the risk. "I choose you," I whispered, pulling her close, "even if it's messy." She nodded against my chest. "And I choose you, for as long as it feels right." We spent the rest of the evening wrapped in that decision, the film credits rolling unnoticed. It wasn't fireworks or fairy tale vows, just 2 people admitting they were in too deep to turn back. Life after that didn't change overnight. We still met when Liam was out, we still deleted our trails. Something shifted inside me. The guilt lingered, yet it was tempered by a quiet resolve. Liam started asking more questions. "Why are you always free when I'm not around?" I would deflect with work excuses. One day at the shop, he cornered me during a break. "Mum seems happier lately. You notice anything?" My throat tightened, but I shrugged. "Maybe she's just in a good place." He bought it for now. Rachel and I talked about telling him someday when the time felt right, but we weren't there yet. The fear of losing him, of blowing up our worlds, kept us cautious. Yet in those hidden hours, we built something solid. She would cook for me. We would walk the neighborhood at dusk, hands brushing but not holding. I fixed little things around her house, a creaky door, a flickering light, feeling like I was mending more than just hardware. She made me see potential in myself, gently pushing me to think about night classes or starting my own repair side gig. "You're more than this shop," she would say, and I believed her because she saw me that way. One crisp autumn evening, after another close call, Liam texting he was on his way home early, I walked out her front door, the cool air hitting my face. I paused on the porch and turned back to glance at the house. The living room light was still on, warm and golden through the curtains. I knew she was there, probably watching from the window, her silhouette faint but present. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, no rings, no dramatic revelations, just us. Two adults navigating something imperfect but genuine. We had chosen each other, risks and all, and for now that was enough. As I drove away, the city lights fading in my rearview mirror, I felt a strange peace. Whatever came next, we would face it. In the end, what this whole tangled journey left me with wasn't just a secret romance or a guilty conscience, but a lesson that still catches in my throat whenever I think about it. Sometimes the most genuine connections arrive in the places we're least allowed to look, and the real courage isn't in following the rules everyone expects, but in daring to feel truly seen when life has made you forget what that even feels like. I spent years drifting through my ordinary days in Manchester, fixing phones and wondering if anything would ever pull me out of neutral, until Rachel showed me that being wanted for exactly who I am, no pretense, no grand ambitions required, can wake parts of your heart you didn't know were asleep. The guilt was heavy, the fear of hurting Liam sharper than any close call. Yet in those quiet kitchen conversations and stolen evenings, I learned that love doesn't always arrive neatly packaged. It asks you to choose between the safe path and the one that makes you feel alive, even if it's messy and frightening. And the hardest truth? Choosing the spark that reignites your soul might cost you something precious, but the emptiness of never risking it at all costs far more. That realization changed me in ways I still can't quite explain. It taught me that we're all just people trying not to feel invisible, and sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let someone see us anyway. If this story pulled at your heartstrings the way it still pulls at mine, drop a comment below and tell me. Have you ever stood at that same crossroads between loyalty and real connection? And if it moved you even a little, please hit subscribe and ring the bell so we can keep sharing these honest, soul-stirring tales together. Cheers, mates. Your support means the world.